to Ms. Bell's classroom. Today in class, we're going to be talking about some of the famous explorations and some of the motivations and just, some of the more well-known names and where they went, kind of what they did. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson. And there is a vast variety of information on this. So I kind of had to pick and choose, what I want to focus on today. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson, and if I left, I know I left a lot out. It's just so much information, but I hope that you enjoy this lesson today. So, why did the explorations happen, and, when did they take place? So from 1450 to 1700, it's kind of known as the Age of Exploration. So some of these factors were agriculture, other resources that people wish to have. Some were polls, motivations, and things that, attracted Europeans to go explore. So there were two main events that kind of led to this, exploration and finding, resources and new things. So the decline of the Mongol Empire in 1400s made goods from the east harder to get and more expensive. The fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 was a major block to trade as well. So when we think about this, we're going to think about the three G's: gold, a glory, and God. So although a little, simplistic, this is a great way to kind of think about the motivations and why people wanted to explore. So the first, gold. Gold was a very hot item that explorers were looking for. But remember that it is really wealth, not just literal gold, explorers were after. Europe needed gold and silver to fuel the rising banking system. Europeans also desired spices. So Da Gama's voyage to India made him a $3,000 profit. Other natural resources were great for profit too: timber, sugar, tobacco, ivory, things like that. This kind of led to the idea that there is only so much wealth in the world, and that to make your kingdom strong, you must have more gold and wealth than other kingdoms. So kind of, competition between other kingdoms, trying to find new land, new resources. So we have gold. The second, glory. So just like the first G, gold, glory was kind of a relatively new idea in Europe. It came out of the Renaissance ideal of humanism and the focus on individual achievement. With the rise of printing press, the idea of gaining fame for one's actions was more possible. Also, individual kings wanted glory for their kingdoms. Competition was spreading, so it's kind of, who could find the most, resources can find the most land, things like that. And then the third G, God. So as members of universalizing religion, Europeans had always seen spreading Christianity as a good thing, especially after the Reformation. Competition would spring up. So colonization kind of became a race to convert native people to a particular brand of Christianity. So Catholics were some of the most active. So that's kind of the three main, motivations why people wanted to explore. So in the 1400s, there was the European population had increased, so there was a demand for Eastern goods was higher. The most valued items were spices, so including pepper, cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, things like that. So a major source of spices was the Moluccas, an island chain in present-day Indonesia. Europeans called them the Spice Islands. So there were many, famous, explorations known. So I'm just gonna kind of talk about some of the people, that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't. Maybe you agree with them, maybe you don't. But so there were the Spanish explorers, the Portuguese, the British. There were many different explorers from Europe. We're going to kind of focus on, the Spanish right now, and then Portuguese next. So, a very famous one, Christopher Columbus. He was Italian. He believed he could sail west to reach the east. There were problems, with this, which included the underestimation of the circumference of the Earth and no knowledge of North and South America. So he set sail on August 3rd, 1492, and reached the Bahamas on October 12th, 1492. He believed he had reached the East Indies, but had discovered the West Indies, or the New World. So Columbus called the natives, and were kind of the first Europeans to be introduced to tobacco. They never found the vast amounts of gold or spices in the Americas, but there were a lot of motives for, seeking spices. Explorers wanted to find new trade routes to, spice-to-spice trade, which was dominated by the Italians. Europeans wanted to cut out the middleman in spice trade, and Europeans wanted to convert non-Christians to Christianity and wanted to learn about new lands as well. So some of the famous Portuguese explorers, first Prince Henry, he, wanted to find a source of African gold, and rumor was that Prester John had built Christian kingdom in Africa. So he had discovered, Madeira, Azores, Cape Verde, and the Canary Islands. So by 1471, Portuguese was in control of West African trade and gold, the Gold Coast. In 1488, the Bartholomew Dias was the first round trip to the southern Africa Cape of Storms. They returned to Portugal to report finding route around Africa to King John II, and renamed Cape of Storms the Cape of Good Hope. Some other, Portugal and, kind of Spain disputes with this. So Spain and Portugal disputed each other's claims. Pope Alexander VI settled the dispute by drawing the line of demarcation, which was, the treaty, which moved the line further west, which gave Portugal Brazil. So other explorers from Portugal was Pedro Cabral. He landed in Brazil and claimed the area for Portugal. An Italian explorer, and I'm sorry if I'm saying these names incorrect, Amerigo Vespucci, will say that Columbus had discovered a new world. German map makers will name the new lands Americas. Vasco de Balboa crossed, the Panama to discover the South Seas or the Pacific Ocean. Juan Ponce de Leon seek the mythical fountain of youth, who explored Florida. Another famous voyage was with Ferdinand Magellan. He was the leader of the voyage that would be the first to kind of circumnavigate the world, or the Earth. Renamed the South Sea the Pacific Ocean. Many sailors on that voyage suffered from scurvy, a disease caused by lack of vitamin C, and their teeth, and they had different sores. Just did not look very pleasant. They encountered islands that he called the Philippines, which is where he got killed. There was also a search for the Northwest Passage, so other European nations, England, France, the Dutch ignored the treaty. Explorers were searching for the North Passage, an all-water route through North America. John Cabot, an Italian, sailing for the English, explored the North American coast from Delaware to Newfoundland, which is the basis for England's claim to North America. Henry Hudson, an English man sailing for the Dutch, explored the river and bay that bears his name now, Hudson. Giovanni de Verrazzano, an Italian man, sailed for the French and explored the North American coast from the Carolinas to Nova Scotia. Jacques Cartier was a Frenchman. He sailed up the St. Lawrence River, claiming the area for France. It was kind of like a big competition, who could find the land, claim it, even if it had the resources or not, that's kind of the mission. There were some things with the Portuguese Empire going on at that time. 6 months after da Gama's return to the Portuguese, sent their fleet to India. Portuguese was interested in obtaining spices. Many traders tried to resist, but Portuguese had mountain cannons on ships. In 1509, Alfonso de Albuquerque, Portugal's most able naval commander, began to establish Portugal's empire in Asia, which was a very small trading post. They used brutal and ruthless methods to gain control of the area. They wanted to control, the gateway to the Spice Islands, and they controlled the spice for over 100 years. So Portugal did face stiff competition for the spices trade. France, England, and the Dutch were all kind of seeking footholds in Asia. Dutch was the most successful, established, the Dutch East India Company, the first multinational corporation. They were the first to sell stocks. They could wage wars, sign treaties, coin money, and, imprison and execute. The Dutch attacked the Portuguese ships at every opportunity, eventually replaced the Portuguese in controlling the spice trade. French and English, kind of concentrated efforts in India, and they became rivals in Asia. So, moving on from that, Spain really had a huge conquest to the Americas. The Spanish quickly settled the islands of the Caribbean, so Cuba, Puerto Rico. Cuba became the jumping off point for the exploration of the New World. The relationship with native population changed. They kind of began to exploit the natives. Spanish crown, granted conquerors the right to establish outposts in the New World, and the motto became God, Glory, and Gold. So with, the Spanish exploration, there was the conquest of the Aztecs. So expeditions sent out by Governor Diego Velázquez from Cuba to explore, the Gulf of Mexico. Herman Cortés was commissioned to explore trade and search for Christian captives. One of the first, conquerors. They set sail from Cuba on February 18th, 1591. There were 16 horsemen on that and 5,500 or so infantry. Upon landing, Cortés found the city of Villa-Rica de la Veracruz. The goal became kind of the conquest of Mexico. So other, Spanish conquerors, Francisco Coronado, led the expedition in the search of El Dorado. He was the first kind of Europeans to see the Grand Canyon and the Great Plains. Hernando de Soto explored the southeastern United States in search of gold. Was the first Europeans to see the Mississippi River. Spanish Empire stretched from California to South America. They were divided into 5 provinces. New Spain, which was Mexico, and Peru were the most important at the time. The monarchy set up the Council of Indies to pass laws for the colonies located in Spain. So they were really trying to convert the natives to Christianity was something very important to Spain. So they had missionaries or baptized natives, and they had to go whether they wanted to or not. They tried to change the culture of Native Americans, so Spanish language and Western clothing, serving the government and regulated activities of the Spanish settlers. So there was a very strict regulation of the economics of the new colonies. Colonies could only export items to Spain and could only buy Spanish goods. They could not trade with other European countries or colonies in the Americas. Spanish introduced sugar cane to the West Indies, so sugar, molasses, and rum. And these were grown on a plantation, so large estates run by owner or overseer, which required many workers. There were cruel labor practices which caused the death of many natives. The Spanish government, gave settlers the right to demand labor or tribute from the Native Americans. And, many of them pleaded for laws to protect them. So in 1542, the new laws of Indies passed, which allowed natives to grow crops and own cattle. Native Americans, kind of were forced to labor for a landlord in order to pay off their debts. So Las Casas encouraged the importance of, people to fill labor shortage. Now we're going to talk about the English settlement in the New World. So in 1607, in Jamestown, established the first kind of permanent colony. The English government encouraged settlement and population grew very quickly. So colonists came to escape religious, persecution and a chance for a better life. English settlers wanted the land, and there was constant strife between the natives and colonists. French concentrated on, the benefit of the new land as well. Furs were in demand in Europe, so beavers. They also exploited fishing areas. The first permanent settlement established by Samuel de Champlain in Quebec in 1608. The government did not encourage settlement, only Catholics allowed to come to New France. They did not want the land, though. So the act of colonization with that, the Native Americans taught settlers about growing crops, taught them how to hunt and trap. Trappers adapted Native American clothing and married Native women as well. Europeans cheated Native Americans out of their land, introduced them to alcoholic drinks, and kind of swindled them in trades. So Europe to Americas, they brought watermelons, grapes, rice, barley, peaches, pears, and olives. From Asia and Africa, the Europeans brought banana, sugar cane, coconut palms, and coffee beans. Europeans brought the horse, cows, pigs, goats, chickens, sheep, and honeybee to Americas. There were also diseases brought, like smallpox, influenza, measles, malaria, and America sent syphilis. So this did, bring diseases, but it allowed for food, more livestock, more trade, more capitalism, things like that. So it expanded trade and pushed for overseas empires to kind of spur the growth of capitalism. The investment of money to make profit. New businessmen called entrepreneurs, people willing to take business risks in hope of making a profit, expanded into overseas ventures. It's kind of risky business because of, piracy and wrecks, but capitalists developed new ways to create wealth. So it's kind of, what came about from all this exploring, finding gold, glory, and God. And then, many of the European countries did come over and conquer the land of the Americas. So it was, kind of a brief lesson, and, there's so many more explorers and, expeditions that have occurred in the world, but I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and thank you for watching.